Hello. Again, it is such a pleasure to be back with you this Sunday. Welcome to Anupali. As I told you the last time I was here, we were in for a very busy week. And indeed, in the past few days, we have recorded several accomplishments, all with the specific goal of enriching and improving the lives of Dominicans. We officially opened 3 health and wellness centers in Portsmouth, Bellevue-Chopin, and my own home village of Vaccination, all named after nurses who have given years of exceptional service to healthcare on the island. We honored Nurse Olivia Douglas in Portsmouth, Nurse Maria Moise of Petit Savan, Bellevue-Chopin, and Nurse Stella LeBlanc of Vaccination. This past week, we also formally received from China 20,000 doses of the Sinopharm vaccine, with the Member of Parliament for Roseau Central, Honorable Melissa Skerrit, being the first to get a jab. These vaccines have boosted our efforts to get at least 70% of our population vaccinated by the summer months, and we thank the government and people of the People's Republic of China for their generosity and for their support of Dominica over so many years. I also wish to place on record on behalf of the government and people of Dominica, and on my own personal behalf, thanks to the President of Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro, for graciously transporting the vaccines to Dominica. Yet another demonstration of the strength of our relationship and the strong bonds of solidarity which exist between our two countries. Without your effort, President Nicolas Maduro, and the government of Venezuela, it would have been impossible to have the vaccines transported. Many thanks as well to the Venezuelan ambassador in Dominica. I say muchas gracias to Venezuela and to President Nicolas Maduro. They transported the vaccines from China all the way to Dominica for us, and we are very grateful for this. Tomorrow, we celebrate International Women's Day under the theme, Choose to Challenge. And I take this time to salute all the wonderful and hardworking women in this, our country. Women who have led the fight in a selfless manner against COVID-19. Our nurses, doctors, ward aides, health aides, hotline workers, and women police officers, and all of the frontline workers. Women who daily overcome struggles and defy the circumstances. Women who have made exceptional global leadership contributions, like our very own Dr. Carissa Iten, the director of the Pan American Health Organization. Women who have availed themselves for national service, like Honorable Octavia Alfred, who led a march in her own constituency today in honor of women, and the other members of parliament, all of whom are making a selfless contribution to Dominica. Women who dedicate themselves to be prayer warriors for our country. Women who work every day tirelessly to keep our island so beautiful and clean. Women who take care of the families on a daily basis. Also tomorrow is Commonwealth Day, and all 54 members will be celebrating under the theme, Delivering a Common Future, Connecting, Innovating, Transforming. So let us go out and celebrate both Commonwealth Day and Women's Day. And as you know, as a government, we are making progress in many areas of development. And I have promised to regularly create the opportunity to field questions from the local media on various issues of national development. Tonight, I have invited two experienced journalists, Ivona John Baptist Luge of DBS Radio and Steve Vidal from Kyrie FM to pose the questions. Ivona, Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening. Happy to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Ivona, can you introduce yourself? I mean, you've been a voice in DBS for
the last, what? 27 and a half years on DBS
27 and a half
Radio.
years.
32 years in radio overall.
42 years.
So yes, my name is Ivona John Baptist Luge. I started at DBS Radio in 1993. And I am the person who manages programming, so I'm the program director at DBS Radio. Having gone through the ranks of sports officer, I was also an announcer, chief reporter, journalist, and yes, now I have a heavy workload because I foresee all the operations of radio.
So you run DBS?
Well, I don't know, but the program director has a very important role to play because the program director is responsible for everything that goes on radio. Excellent. But it's really a pleasure to be here. Prime Minister Skerrit, I've invited you in the past on programs, and it's nice that you could make the request to have me on as well. Sure. And especially as it's International Women's Day tomorrow, I feel humbled. So I look forward to a very interesting discussion.
Well, happy to have you, and thanks for accepting my invitation to be here. Steve, you've been around too for a while.
Yes, Prime Minister, good evening to you and good evening to our viewers and listeners as well. It's been a while. I remember the date, 29th of May, 1990. I started at Voice of Life Radio, gave 10 years of service there, moved across to Transworld Radio International and the CGN Network in the Caribbean, in Bonaire, in the Netherlands and Antilles. Worked there for some time, returned to Dominica, and Mr. Frankie Bellot, with open arms, welcomed me to Kyrie. I served there in different capacities: production manager, general manager, journalist, producer, various capacities. I now operate, I hold the position of program director, and I've been doing that for some years now. So I'm happy to be here, and yeah.
So you're the engine of Kyrie FM.
Sito.
But the way we have is, I'm not sure whether you've seen it before, but the way they have it, when I have journalists on, I hand over the show to them.
Okay.
And at some point I will assume authority over the show. So, over the program. So I will pass on to you, so you feel free to decide how you're managing the questions between yourselves.
Well, I'm going to take the lead, of course. It's International Women's Day tomorrow, and there's a saying, women first. So, Dominica, of course, we have a lot of issues. We are pregnant with issues, but a lot of interesting things happening in Dominica. And when you look at probably what is the main issue on the front burner, it will be COVID-19 and most of the vaccines. Prime Minister Skerrit, many countries have reported the devastating impacts COVID-19 has had on their economies. How is your government responding to the economic shocks brought by COVID-19?
Well, in respect to the economic shocks, as you know, this government has always indicated that the prudent and responsible management of the economy is of paramount importance, especially for a small state like Dominica that is so vulnerable to external shocks and natural disasters. And in the case of COVID-19, we are in fact experiencing an external shock. And that external shock has been very extensive and expensive as well. And so we have been rooted in Dominica over several years, coming out of the IMF program in 2006, of having very strong fiscal policies. And this is why we always maintain that having strong fiscal policies is important, because it allows you some space to maneuver and to cushion against external shocks. And of course, we've had the experiences with Erica, we've had experience with Maria. And so once we saw COVID-19 coming, we knew that there was going to be some trouble ahead. And immediately, we in the Ministry of Finance, as the Minister of Finance, I directed that we need to start taking proactive and preemptive measures. So one, we reduce on discretionary and expenditure, non-essential expenditure, so that we could have resources to deal with issues of health and issues of livelihoods for people. Secondly, we recognize that we're going to have a challenge in respect to revenues. It's going to be affected. If people are going to come to Dominica, cruise ships are ending their calls to the Caribbean, you're going to have a challenge. You're going to have a challenge in terms of maintaining jobs and maintaining social safety nets. And so we started looking at mobilizing resources, because if you're going to have a drop, and of course we saw an over 33% drop in revenue last year. And so we need to ensure that we had resources, funds to cushion the financial gap, the financing gap. By and large, we've been very successful where this is concerned. This has helped. We've also been managing the Citizenship Investment Program in a very prudent manner. So we've been utilizing those funds as they come in to pay our debts, to meet some of our recurrent expenditure, and to also sustain the public sector investment program, the projects that we have in Dominica. Another thing that we ensured that we did was that the cabinet took a decision that we have to maintain people's dignity. And the way to maintain people's dignity is to ensure that people are able to go home with a paycheck to provide food on the table for their families. And this is why we kept everybody on the government's payroll, including that of the National Employment Program. And to ensure that all our safety nets, that we give this priority, the people who are receiving the public assistance, people who are receiving the allowance for 17 over. So we had to keep all of those systems in place to ensure that not only the economic aspects of the country are sustained, but also the livelihoods of people, and mobilize resources to ensure that those who were displaced or dislocated as a result of COVID-19, where the job is concerned, that some kind of income support could have been provided to them. These have helped, but it has been very difficult. As a government, we don't complain, but just reflect on how your families, how you manage the affairs of your families, and the juggling of expenses, and which one do you give priority to this one, and cutting down and cutting back. It is no different from the government. Just that the government, it is more pronounced in the government system, because you have a number of fixed obligations. And we have a reputation in this government over 21 years of not failing, not once, on the repayment of our debts. And we have kept this, even in difficult times. We have kept this. So by and large, I think we have fared well. I think it speaks to, and I say so with the greatest of humility, I think it speaks to the experience of leadership in this country at the government level, knowing the system, having contacts, having relationships across the world. I mean, I've said to the Parliament, for example, and the nation, we were called by OPEC. And OPEC said to us, wrote to me and said, look, we're mobilizing resources, and we would like to offer Dominica help. We've never had any loans from OPEC before. We've never had any direct relationship with them, but obviously they're part of our international financial systems. We would have spoken to the IMF and to the World Bank and others, and they would have certainly directed them at us, and we were able to get a loan of $10 million US, that is 27 million EC dollars, from OPEC to cushion the financial impact. And the CDB has helped quite a bit. The World Bank also was very helpful. The IMF itself was very helpful. And so we've been able to manage things in a prudent manner. I have a very able financial secretary in the person of Ms. Dennis Edwards, very knowledgeable, very practical and pragmatic. And so we've been able to work very well together. I'm leading the Ministry of Finance at the administrative and political levels to ensure that, that we provide adequately for our country.
Mr. Prime Minister, in terms of the vaccination program, how well are we doing, and how many people have been vaccinated so far?
I think as of yesterday, about 11,000, I think 400 or 500 people have been vaccinated thus far. The numbers are not bad. We're targeting about 915 each day. We have been averaging about 1,000 every day, 1,015 every day. We like to see numbers increase. It's absolutely important that everyone gets vaccinated. We are in a fortunate situation where we have vaccines to vaccinate a wide cross-section and percentage of our population. And so we have to avail ourselves to get vaccinated. We would like for the banks to mobilize their staff. We would like for the unions to mobilize their staff. We would like for the police and for the nurses and all of the other organizations and institutions to help with the mobilization. I know that there, like Dominic, like everywhere in the world, there is vaccine hesitancy. That is quite natural. There's nothing untoward about it. But we have to look at the science and what the scientists are saying to us. And this is another weapon we have against COVID-19. And it's absolutely important that we get vaccinated so that we can get back to some sense of normalcy. The cruise ships are talking about coming back. There's a wide cross-section of Dominican society which depends on the cruise ship for their survival. There's a number of Dominicans who depend on the yachts coming in and taking advantage of their services in the economy. I mean, when you look, for example, at the Roosevelt Valley, if I were to advise the folks in the Roosevelt Valley, everybody in Roosevelt Valley should take a vaccine because of the heavy extent of the reliance on tourism in the Roosevelt Valley. And a number of other communities, likewise, in the Carnago territory and these places. And so I believe that the cruise ships are going to want to come into countries where they believe that there is some level of herd immunity inoculation having taken place, and because they want to also protect their tourists, because I believe to get on a cruise ship, you're going to have to show your vaccination passport or vaccination card. And there's serious discussion over the last few days across the globe about this happening. In Israel, for example, to go into a restaurant, you have to show that you got vaccinated, or to go into a bar, or to go into the cinema. So I think it's important, absolutely important, that we get vaccinated. And avail ourselves to get vaccinated. There are vaccines and we'll have vaccines eventually for every single adult in our country.
But is there a window or targeted date that you would like to see this happen?
Well, some of the vaccines have a shelf life, and we are pushing to utilize those vaccines in the month of March. Those we receive from China have a longer shelf life. They'll be there. We'll also be getting some from through the PAHO COVAX facility. So as time goes by, we'll keep getting vaccines. But it will be in our interest, personally, as individuals, on the family level, as well as a country level, if we all get vaccinated now. Don't wait for the summer. Don't wait for when we have to travel and come looking for vaccine because the US says you must get a vaccine, or another country in CARICOM says you must get a vaccine, as is the case now with the PCR test. We were among the first countries that required you have a PCR test to come into Dominica. And there are many people who oppose that. But now it is in the United States. Now it is also in Europe and the United Kingdom. And so it's important for us, and every CARICOM country has it. So it's important for us to recognize that we have the opportunity, thank God, to get vaccinated, and we should avail ourselves.
Mr. Skerrit, before we move on, of course, to another topic, I wanted to stay on the vaccines for a while. Because you have consistently said that the manufacturers of COVID vaccines have a moral responsibility to make the vaccines available to small island developing states in particular. Have you seen of late an improvement in the availability of vaccines to these small island developing states?
Well, first of all, Dominica believes very strongly, and I have said so to many governments and many institutions, that vaccines should be seen as a public good, which means that it should be made available to every citizen, every global citizen, and every country in the world, irrespective of your economic status, your size. The reality is, as of now, you're really only getting vaccines in developed countries from two countries, China and India. The other countries are focused exclusively on supplying the domestic demands. In Europe, there has been an invocation of a piece of legislation that disallows the exportation of vaccines outside of the European Union. I mean, you had a situation where some vaccines were destined for Australia from Italy, and it was blocked and redistributed among the countries. And so we have not been getting any vaccines from any developed country thus far. And it's unfortunate. Governments are elected to take care of the people first, and we respect that. But we're part of a global community, and it's important for us to share what we have and where these vaccines are being manufactured and produced. I think they have a moral and ethical obligation to share. with us. Not wait for when you have vaccinated everyone in your country, then you share with us the rest that is left. It's not going to help you because we're going to be moving among ourselves and between countries. So it is very difficult with the vaccines. There are over 130 countries, as have been reported by the United Nations, which have not received one dose of any vaccine. You understand? And that is unfortunate. It's unfortunate. We have the COVAX facility for PAHO. They have not really, they've started getting some vaccines and they've sent to Ghana and some other countries. But we in the Caribbean have not yet benefited from the COVAX facility. I'm told that we will start benefiting hopefully in the month of March. We'll wait to see what happens. But the challenge which the COVAX facility has is supply. And they only get it now from India. So only India they have been able to source some vaccines for now. So the only two countries really that have been helping the world with vaccines really are India and China.
Prime Minister Skerrit, on another note, what kind of relationship would you expect between the new U.S. administration and the Caribbean?
Well, you know, as I've said on this program before, there are lots of misconceptions involving the relationship with the United States and Dominica. We enjoy very, very good relations. We're respectful to each other. We're very straightforward on many issues. We work very closely with the United States on security issues. I think Dominica, within the Caribbean context, has one of the best working relationships with the United States government where security is concerned. I mean, and this has been so for the entire time as myself as Prime Minister. When you look at our support for the United States on global issues, at the United Nations, we've supported the United States in more than 95% of the time. And issues of global climate change. We have been working in the United States on this, you know, negotiating with the Paris Accord, and I'm happy that President Biden has decided, has signed back onto the Paris Accord and appointed former Secretary of State Jim Kerry to this high office and as he has his point person on climate change. We disagree in the United States on a couple of things, a couple of approaches, one of which is on the approach with Venezuela. We do not support sanctions. We don't think sanctions help achieve any objective, but to cause ordinary folks and poor folks to suffer because they're the most vulnerable. You know, and so we always believe that there are different ways of achieving different objectives. And so we look forward to working with President Biden. We have reached out to the new administration. They have reached out to us as well. And we're talking, we're engaging, we have advice for them on how we believe that they need to look at the Caribbean. I think the U.S. policy to the Caribbean needs to be revamped and to be redefined. I think they've been receiving bad advice as to how they engage the Caribbean community on a number of issues. And they are our closest neighbors and they have a natural right or opportunity to be present in the region and to work more directly with us. We have many of our citizens in the United States as resident and citizens and also as students. And so there are a number of areas I believe that we can collaborate and work on to our mutual benefit. And we look forward to that. I know the President Biden is preoccupied with national issues, with COVID-19, and we understand that. But I'm sure that as time goes by, we'll find a way of carving out a working and collaborative relationship, not only bilaterally, but in a wider Caribbean context.
I want to ask a follow-up question on that, though, because it's interesting that you mentioned the Paris Climate Change Accord. I want to look at the issue of food security and global environment change as well, these emerging challenges. What is the way forward for Dominica in that regard, especially where food security is concerned? Are we producing enough food?
I think we're producing enough food. I mean, you can never produce too much. But I think when you look at our investments in agriculture and the number of people who are still engaged in agriculture, not only growing food but exporting. I mean, I've always maintained publicly that our GDP numbers do not quite correctly reflect the contribution of agriculture to our GDP. I think it is grossly understated. I don't think it captures adequately our exports. And I think the statistics department had done some initial investigation, and they themselves have found this out, that there's always underreporting where the hoxes are concerned. People never want to know their business, so they always underreport. So I think we have to find a way of mainstreaming these things. But I believe that agriculture is making a much larger contribution to our GDP than we actually report in our statistical data. There are opportunities for new varieties of crops. We have to look at some of the items we import in and to see how we can reduce on it. But at the end of the day, the success of agriculture in any country will depend on the consumption habits and practices of the consumers. If we make a concerted effort to buy local, for example, we have the abattoir. We have many farmers supplying both pork and poultry meats. If we go to the supermarkets, all of us, and we say to the supermarkets, we are demanding locally grown, locally produced chicken or pork, they will supply. But if we choose to buy that which is exported, then this is a free market economy. The supermarkets will sell what people are buying, and therefore we have to make a concerted effort to buy local, to eat what we grow, because we're going to be helping the economy by doing so. And then let us leverage that on the export market. And there are opportunities at the export market, and we are selling quite a bit, as I said. And of course, the investments in agriculture, we've seen a lot of young people in agriculture. We've seen young professionals getting involved in agriculture as well, which is a good sign, because we need that critical financial injection, so people bringing in money into agriculture. Agriculture has largely been, for many years, the government being almost the sole investor in agriculture. And for you to get to the level that you really want to get involved, the private sector must get involved in agriculture. Many countries in the world where agriculture is at a high level, it's private sector investments. And people bring in money and invest in agriculture, investing in technology, investing in equipment, in investing in modern agricultural practices. And so we need that kind of critical mass if we're for us to get to the next level of our agricultural investments and the level of exports that we would like to see.
So Dominica has been blacklisted by the OECD. What is the latest on this? Are we out of the woods? And what is CARICOM saying as a body? Do we look out for each other, speak as a voice?
Yeah. Well, we were not really blacklisted. They say we'll be non-compliant. And it is not because of any transaction that the government has engaged itself in or has not engaged itself in. The European Union and OECD look at your tax system, because that's their preoccupation, and to see what actions we need to take to bring our tax regime to on par with the international standards or on international level. So they said that we are not largely compliant. We are compliant, but not largely compliant. There's a term that they use, largely compliant. So they say we're not largely compliant. And we have responded to them. They have indicated the areas that we need to address. We don't disagree with those areas. I mean, there's nothing untoward about it, to be honest with you. But one has to understand, with small public services, and people having to do so many different things in one position, that you don't always ascribe the time to these things. These things you need almost a separate government department, full time, to look at these matters. And of course, preoccupied with COVID-19, where you're trying to save lives and you're trying to mobilize resources to make ends meet. You're not going to be preoccupied with something like this, so something so innocuous, or something that's not going to change the price of sugar on the shelf in Dominica. And I've written to the European Union, I've said publicly that they're a bit insensitive to be treating this as a major global priority in this time when people are dying left, right, and center in so many countries, and people are seeking to scavenge for vaccines, and people are still trying to see where they can get PPEs and ventilators and medicines and so forth that you are writing this. They responded to me um, very sheepishly, I should say, you know, almost apologetic because I think they've been embarrassed by this globally because everybody's asking, come on. Come on, this is why I said I thought they were sending me some vaccines, but instead they say that we're not largely compliant. But we have put this framework in place and we will implement some of the measures, and I am confident the next time they have the peer review, Dominica shall be removed.
Prime Minister Skerrit, we have heard in recent days the issue of the flying of drones. That has been a hot topic in Dominica. Yes, this matter is still being investigated. It is before the courts. But what is the situation, read a law or regulations in terms of flying of drones in Dominica?
Well, first of all, you know, it is certainly strange that anybody in leadership or any sensible person would condone the flying of a drone or any such equipment over the official residence or even the private residence of a head of government or head of state or the police headquarters or a government headquarters. I mean, in the state of Washington, for example, Washington D.C., is a completely no-fly zone. You understand? It's a completely no-fly zone. So this is an international practice. You know, that you cannot fly any such device over such residences for obvious reasons. And one has to understand that drones can carry poisons. They can carry a bomb. You can have a gun attached to it and remotely use it. So these things happen. I mean, in the war in Afghanistan and places, countries use drones to deliver bombs. So these things can be used and so forth. And so we must never try to politicize these things. And then when we become a victim, those who criticizing the police action, if you become a victim, what happens to you? What will be your reaction? You know, if any one of the citizens in Dominica were to go by anyone's home today or tomorrow morning with a drone and circle your home and take photographs of yourself and so forth and post this on social media and so on, how would we react? But having said so, we're going to be passing some very strong and clear statutory rules and ordinances where those drones are concerned. So that will be done in very quick time. But I would caution Dominicans. There's a tendency that people who break the law, there is a tendency by the opposition in particular to treat it political. And I believe for anyone who is aspiring to be a leader of a country, who is going to be entrusted with the security of the state, and who is going to be entrusted with state security, regional security, confidential stuff, you have to show leadership, not then, but now. And the lack of leadership that Mr. Linton, the leader, continues to show is really unfortunate. The rule of law is the rule of law. And whether that person is a supporter, any supporter of mine who breaks the law and comes to me to complain, I don't give them support. I may direct you to a lawyer because you're entitled to a lawyer. And as a leader of the party, my party, I will facilitate the payment of a lawyer for you to defend yourself. But not to call the police or to tell the police to drop the charges against you or don't charge you. No. The law is the law. And I tell people that you have to respect the law, irrespective of who you are. And that is what leadership is about. That is what managing the affairs of country about. And just simple bit of advice, Mr. You may have a few people who might support your actions, you understand? But what harm are you causing to the country? And compromising the police and wanting to compromise the police and the law enforcement system it's a very dangerous practice. And this has never really happened before. The opposition leaders have engaged themselves in demonstrations on national issues, not about somebody being arrested or charged with violating a law, in the country. And that's a dangerous thing, because the law is there to protect every one of us. You understand? And today it might be my rights and privileges that are being violated, but tomorrow what happens when it's you? And then the police say, well, you know, there's nothing, I'm not going to come, and so on, or the police comes and arrests the person, and then what's going to happen? Somebody is going to demonstrate and seek to create problems outside the police headquarters. This is a democracy. This is a country that is governed by the rule of law. And if somebody, and under our system, somebody is innocent until proven guilty, and you are allowed for due process, and you are allowed to defend yourself. And so any responsible aspiring leader would want to suggest to whoever it is, my brother, my sister, your lawyer is with you, let your lawyer deal with the matter and so forth. Yes, you can show support in ways, but the idea of wanting to storm the police headquarters or denigrate the police for carrying the actions, these are the same police we're going to need to continue to defend the country. And if you're not in the high leadership position and you're doing this, you cannot change when you become, if you become, thank God you, Mr. Linton, never become a prime minister of the country, under no circumstances whatsoever, because it's bad news for Dominica. You know, so I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about the perpetuation of that culture in Dominica, that we believe that people can break the law and they should not be charged or arrested or questioned because they support a particular political party. And it's unfortunate.
Prime Minister Skerrit, the government is proposing a re-evaluation of the Safe in Nature program. Has government considered the impact this could have on the local sector? I know that the HTA has a very serious concern.
Well, I think every action the government has taken so far as COVID-19, the management of COVID-19 is concerned, we continuously review and assess and evaluate, you know, and to assess and evaluate the risk of these programs. There have been some concerns about the program, insofar as some people are adhering to the conditions under which we have this program. And we have called out some of these individuals. So I think it's an opportunity for us to evaluate and to assess where we are in the program. I think by and large and generally speaking, it has been successful. I do not see a need for us to put an end to it. I don't think that's the intention of the government. But I think what we've said we're going to be doing is to evaluate it, assess it. And we'll be doing so jointly with the DHTA. We have been great partners with them. They've been very amenable to working together, and we've had great success, and we've been able to reach consensus on a number of points. There are some things that we are not going to compromise on. For example, eliminating the 5-day PCR test, we have to keep this. And there are one or two other areas and so forth. So we're not going to eliminate it, but we're going to review it, and we are going to engage the DHTA to jointly review it and to make sure that wherever we identify weaknesses, that we can address those weaknesses to minimize the risk. You'll never be able to eliminate a risk completely, but you can mitigate against it. You can minimize its impact if it were to come to a reality. I know the DHTA has written to me, making certain requests, and I'm hoping that I can respond to them hopefully tomorrow on this letter that they've written to me. But I think by and large it's going well. I think the DHT has been very helpful. The property owners have been also very helpful. The tourists have been largely compliant. The stakeholders themselves. So there's high sense of responsibility on the part of the stakeholders. But it's a time for us to evaluate. Having 15 or so cases in isolation and having those cases identified at the airport or in quarantine should not be a reason for us to put down our guard. We have to keep our guard firmly intact We need to ensure that we monitor what's happening, evaluate what's happening. Because as we've said, you can have COVID walking the streets of Dominica. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? We hope not, but we have to be mindful that there's a possibility. And so we continue to evaluate our actions.
Prime Minister Skerrit, where is government currently on the international airport project, particularly as it relates to land acquisition?
Well, in terms of land acquisition, we have completed the process in law. We are continuing to make payments to the property owners as we go along. It's a bit tedious because you have many of those properties that are owned by families or are in the hands of an estate, meaning the rightful owner has died and they left a will. And so the issue of compensation, there are people who have mortgages and caveats from financial institutions, so we have to be engaging these financial institutions. There are some people who do not have titles for the lands, and you have to work on this. So everyone case is not the same, and the people who have accepted land for land swap, the people who have accepted cash for compensation completely. So as time goes by, we are making payments. For example, there were several delays in making some payments of about $5 million sometime last week, 2 weeks ago, because of those tedious details. You know, those details that one has to address to ensure that we do this stuff legally. We protect both ourselves and the property owner. So it's going very well. We have given the trigger to start the homes that we have to build for those affected. We are going through the process of apportioning or allocating lands for agricultural purposes for these people who have been displaced. So there are a number of actions have been taken in respect to the agreement. It is taken much longer than we anticipated because it's a highly technical document, and we need to ensure that all of the bases are covered. This is a very huge project. It's a huge undertaking with many different parts and many different considerations. You know, this is not a house you're building or a health center. This is an international airport that has a number of safety issues that you have to be mindful of, working with Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority and ICAO and the others. And so we have to ensure that all of the details are captured. That notwithstanding, we have been making advances. For example, we have acquired all of the equipment for the lab, for the setting up of the lab that will deal with the testing and the geotechnical studies. So a number of equipment pieces of equipment have been purchased. We have identified a location for the construction of this lab, and we will start construction of that lab very soon. So we're ready to move. I think it's just a matter of signing off on the agreement with the developer, and once that is done, I think you will see some real movement taking place. But
Prime Minister Skerrit, have you been able to secure a replacement for Ross University? Surely this was a major loss for Dominica.
Yeah, I mean, where Ross is concerned, we've been talking to some operators. There's a group actually came down to Dominica last week, spent 10 days in Dominica, engaging the government on the possibility of setting up a medical school in Dominica. And I think we're hopeful. You know, starting up a school is not a very simple process. You know, I just saw when Ross really came in and was functioning in a hotel room at this hotel in Mero, and eventually it evolved into this campus at Picard. So, but we're hopeful that we may very well have a more serious player on the horizon. And once I have a firmer position, then I'll certainly share this with the rest of the country. But I can say that, you know, by the grace of God, we'll have a replacement for Ross University.
But Prime Minister Skerrit, I had a lead-up question to the airport.
Sure.
Who are the directors of the airport development company, and what is the cost of the airport?
The International Airport Development Company is a wholly owned entity of the state, the government of Dominica. It was established to oversee the construction of the airport. The intention of the government is to is to get the construction of the airport outside of the government system, because you know the bureaucracies and so forth, and this airport will require day-to-day oversight. And so we have a board. The board is made up of a number of people, both in the public and private sector. We have Mr. Bino Badwell as the chairman. We have the financial secretary as the deputy chairperson. We have the permanent secretary in the ministry, in the office of the prime minister. We have the chief technical officer in the Ministry of Public Works. We have the manager of Dominica, manager of Duasco. We have pilot, Mr. Kelsick, who is resident in Antigua, but a Dominican national. And so there are a number of people. We have Mr. Avondale Paul, who has a background in finance on the board. So we try to bring in a number of people with varying skills and talents, and also people who will be representing companies that will be doing serious business with. So Dominica is a very critical part of the airport. Duasco is a very critical part of the airport. And also the telecommunication companies will be very instrumental in the construction of the airport. And then that company will have staff. And we've engaged, as we've said to the country, the engagement of Mr. Samuel Johnson as the Chief Executive Officer. In the next few days, we'll be advertising for other positions within that company, so that Dominicans can avail themselves of the opportunity to be employed and oversee the construction of the international airport.
So CNCDs, I know you are very concerned about the health of the people, and you speak almost on a daily basis on people's health in Dominica. I know it's a major concern for you, particularly where the young people are concerned. What is government's plans of dealing with the issue, especially with our young people in mind?
Well, I think arresting the situation is largely in the hands of the citizens and residents of our country. We have to change our habits. Clearly, we have to eat better, not more, but better. We have to look more at a healthy diet. I think we need to increase in Dominica our fruit intake and also our vegetable intake. We have to reduce dramatically our sugar consumption, our salt consumption. We have to exercise more, with more of us having vehicles. And everybody wants to be dropped off or parked right in front of where they work or at the supermarket, so people don't walk. As before, when you went to school, most of us walked. And when we went to work, most of us took the bus and we walked to the bus stop from work. These things have dramatically been reduced. And of course, the more developed you get, is the less reliant on the soil and so forth, because it's easier for us to go and flash our credit card or debit card or cash at the supermarkets and get the bulk juice with only 100% sugar and no fruit really. So we really have to look at this, because as it is now, we are using more than 25%. It's costing us more than 20% of our budget, pharmaceutical budget, medicine budget, to treat CNCDs. And my greater concern about CNCDs also is the impact it has on the economy and the way of life of our citizens. Because these things are impacting every age group. So it's not affecting the senior citizens who have given their 30, 40 years of service to the country. It's affecting young children, young adults, every one of us is affecting. And so if you have a 43-year-old man experiencing a major stroke or heart attack, and he has 3 children going to school, he's the only breadwinner, he will have to go on sick leave. And of course, you have a limit number of how many months you can be on sick leave before your salary comes to an end. You're going to have an impact. Or you have a young person in their 40s having their legs amputated because of complications associated with diabetes. So we really have to pay attention to this. I think we have to increase on our public education at the schools, at the family level, at the church level. To me, this is something that we have to have a national war against CNCDs, because this is a major threat to our survival. It's a major threat to our economy. It's a major threat to our way of life. And if we don't address it, we're going to have a serious problem. And this is not the case only in Dominica. This is a Caribbean-wide global pandemic. It's really a pandemic. You know, and it is something that we have to address. And I know at CARICOM level, we've been talking about this for many years, but it's going to require individuals to change their habits. Individuals going to change their lifestyles and to exercise and to eat more vegetables and to, you know, for example, when you make juice, there's no need for you to add sugar to it because it has its juice. We're cooking dashing and yam and dumplings and so forth. We put salt into this. If you eat a piece of dashing without no salt, you will taste the salt, you taste the sugar in it. It's sweet. It has its own salt. So there's no need to add salt to these things. But we have taken policies where we impose high tax rates on sugary drinks and so forth, but that's not preventing people from buying these things. That's not preventing people from smoking. That's not preventing people from consuming alcohol. You know, so it has been a preoccupation of mine, as you know, for a long time. And it's something that we have to address, otherwise we can have a problem, a serious one.
Prime Minister Skerrit, on another topic, you have advocated for electoral reform and have appointed Sir Dennis Byron to lead that process. Has he begun his stint?
Well, yes, and I also say that, you know, I continue to be in full support of the process. I really don't think there's a need for any electoral reform insofar as people say that we don't have free and fair elections. We've always had free and fair elections in Dominica. And everyone who wants to exercise his franchise has been able to do so freely. So this has been the case. But nonetheless, obviously, everything, you require some amendments and some review from time to time. And I think the time is right for us to seriously look at making some changes to our electoral process and to see how we can enhance the process, make it more efficient. And this is why we have appointed Sir Dennis Byron, someone with unquestionable experience and abilities. He has in fact started his work. I am not in contact with Sir Dennis. I think the Commission is in contact with Sir Dennis on a regular basis. And I'm hoping that those persons and institutions whom he has written to would respond, because that's a problem we have in Dominica sometimes. People talk, but when it comes to acting, they have an issue. So, especially where the opposition is concerned, you've been calling for electoral reform. Here's your opportunity, if you're serious, to present what do you think, and do not keep shifting the goalposts as I'm hearing the opposition is doing. You know, every time they see progress is being made on electoral reform, then they change what they're calling for, and it's unfortunate that this is the case. But let us advance the process. My hope is that I would like to conclude that process this year and give us a clear several years before the next election to ensure that all systems are in place. And let us not wait till last minute to try to do it. But I am in full support of it, and I look forward to the recommendations coming from Sir Dennis Byron.
Prime Minister, can you bring us up to date with salary negotiations between the unions and the government negotiating team?
Where salary negotiations are concerned, the Cabinet has approved of the agreement between the Public Service Union and government. The Public Service Union has concluded its negotiations with government for the past triennium. I know that there's some additional work, additional discussions which need to be had with the Dominica Association of Teachers, and that is ongoing. I'm hoping that we can conclude on this. But insofar as the Public Service Union is concerned, we have concluded on this, and based on the agreement, we will start implementing the decisions, the mutually agreed actions with regards to the union. And I must say that, you know, you always find that the union has, especially Mr. Slater, will always make statements in the public domain and always agitating and so forth. Most times wrongly so, though, I would say, but nonetheless agitating. But I must say that the union has been very responsible, the PSU, very responsible and very pragmatic with their approach in negotiations this year. And I think because of that, we've been able to make some swift progress and arrive at a very quick understanding between ourselves. The reality is, every public servant in this country, public officer in this country, should be grateful for the circumstance. I mean, we have not sent anybody home, and people must not believe that because they're permanent, they cannot be sent home. Any position in the public service can be made redundant, and you're paid your severance pay and you go home. So nobody has any security of tenure. This is not the case. But we have not sent anybody home, whether a person is on temporary basis or permanently appointed. We have paid salaries on time. We have made our payments to the DSS on time as well. So a public officer in Dominica is really in an enviable position compared to other jurisdictions. And this is our country. Your country can only give you what it has. It cannot give you more than what it has. It's like a family. If your children come to you to ask you for something and you can't afford it, the children have to understand. You have to explain to your children that you cannot afford it. And so it's not dissimilar to how a country is run. People want this, people want that. You have to fix roads, you have to build roads, and building roads in Dominica is very expensive. We're building new health centers, we're building new hospitals, homes for people. We spent so far for the financial year over $15 million paying for tuition fees to students across the world. Many countries, they have told students to stay home and to sit out the year. We have not done so. Students continue to go to school. So it is not an easy circumstance. We can only give that which we have. But the problem the government has is that it has made this thing look so simple, and it doesn't complain. So people think that it's easy. It's not an easy job at all. And we just have to work together and see ourselves through this very difficult and challenging period. But I'm very grateful that we've been able to conclude with the Public Service Union and look forward to our conclusion with the other unions.
Mr. Skerrit, what is the latest on the $15,000 1% loan facility at the Aid Bank? Because we're still hearing there are concerns by people having difficulty accessing it. And in an effort to save time, can you keep us updated on the CBI program? Yeah,
the $15,000 loan facility at the Aid Bank, I believe we were given the Aid Bank because we had agreed to $5 million, and that's what people have to understand. We agreed to $5 million, and we have fulfilled our commitment to this $5 million. And what we have found out from the report from the Aid Bank is that there was an oversubscription of this facility by about, I believe, $4 or $5 or so million. What we've agreed to do as a government is, in recognition of the fact that it's oversubscribed, that we would provide the additional funding to the Aid Bank. We have not received those funds. We're supposed to get some funds from the World Bank very soon. Once we receive those funds, we will provide additional support to the Aid Bank so that it can meet the oversubscription that it has now. So that's our commitment. But we don't have the funds yet. I'm hoping that we can get it soon. And right as we get it, we will pass it on to the Aid Bank. But the reality is, quite a number of Dominicans benefited from this. The problem you have in things like that is that you'll always hear those who have not received, but you'll not hear from those or about those who have received. And those who have received far outweigh by a large margin those who have not yet received. So I think some of our own public relations is poor, but quite a number of people have received, and there's an oversubscription will get us going. Where the CBI is concerned, obviously, as you know, we have maintained, we have a certain high level of respect in the marketplace because of our credibility, because of the processes that we follow, the due diligence, and our relationship with the stakeholders in the marketplace. And so we maintain a certain respectful and respectable and serious presence in the marketplace. We have not seen any dramatic effect of COVID-19 on the CBI program. And in Dominica's case, we have been able to utilize the CBI program to help fund a number of public sector investment programs. So the health centers, the homes we're building, the Margaret Hospital. So this has been a genius way of of enhancing the product that we have. And of course, the hotels. Hotels have never stopped. They continue to be constructed, and several people are employed in the construction sector and providing services. So overall, the CBI is doing well, and of course, we intend to finance the construction of the international airport, utilizing the CBI funds in a similar manner in which we are currently utilizing to construct the health centers and the housing. This, we believe, is a way to go. This will minimize or eliminate the need for us to borrow any significant funds. And so this is I believe, a remarkable way to approach it. But overall, I believe the CBI is doing well, and we look forward to, because this is an important non-tax revenue source. And this is why it's unfortunate that anybody in Dominica who says that they love Dominica, who says that they care about Dominica, would seek to cause injury to the CBI program. We can ask questions, we can ask critical questions, we could ask for clarifications. These things are fine, but it should never be to collude with external forces who do not have our national interests and to seek to undermine Dominica. So when we as leaders in this country, whether in government or other government, we have an opportunity to speak about Dominica, it must always be in the positive. You understand? It must always be in the positive. But there are some who are bent on the negative and will seek to create a perception of negativity within the CBI program. But it's a robust system. We maintain the high principles of the due diligence and the security of the program, and we can stand the test of scrutiny by any independent arbiter.
Let me ask quickly, Prime Minister, I see we are approaching the end. Your impact on the political landscape, of course, is clear for all to see. You now have a major majority in the Parliament. But I am hearing that you may be serving your last term as Prime Minister.
Well, in this, I've never felt that I was going to be Prime Minister forever. At some point, one would have to make a determination as to when he or she calls it quits. The reality is, unlike most people, I started at a very young age, and I got involved in politics at a particular age that most people would not want to get involved in. So even when I hear people talk about Skerrit there for too long and so on, the question is, how many of them would have contested election at 27 years old and give up so much to build Dominica? And I have given my youth and my early adult life to Dominica, not only in politics but in education. At some point, you make a determination as to when do you say, you have to take a break and relax and maybe do something else or some other things. But when the time comes, the country will know very clearly on this. But my commitment is to the country first, and my commitment is Dominica Labour Party. I believe that the Labour Party is the only organized and serious political institution in Dominica, the party that cares about people in a genuine and sincere manner, and they know the party can do so. And so it is in Dominica's interest to always maintain the Dominica Labour Party in office. The other option that we have in Dominica is not serious. It's not serious at the leadership level, and it's not serious even at the core of its being. And so I know that there are some in the opposition who believe that they stand a better chance if Roosevelt Skerrit is not there. This is why you realize that the attack is always heavily on Roosevelt Skerrit in all sorts of ways. But the Labour Party is pregnant with leaders, and anyone can be born at any time. And as you know, I promote leadership within the party. I'm not afraid of my position. I call on every one of them to rise to the occasion and to provide leadership where they are. Don't wait for if you get to that point, then you want to show that you're a leader. No, that's where you are. And if the Lord calls you out of the church today, and then the pastor was preached on 1 Samuel chapter 3, where the Lord called out Samuel. So if you if your Lord calls you by Samuel, then it's fine. But you also have to be careful about not hearing your own voice. It must be the voice of the Lord.
But would you sit on a panel with the opposition to discuss the matters of the country?
Which opposition?
With the opposition leader.
Which one?
Mr. Linton.
Which Mr. Linton?
Lennox Linton, to discuss the issues. Or any of the opposition
parties. I don't mind discussing with anybody. I mean, you know, people know me, and I would like to discuss with anybody any issue. I avail myself to all opportunities. But I think Mr. Linton, I'm not Mr. Linton's advisor. I'm not sure who is advising him. But my understanding is that he takes advice from no one, including the former Prime Minister, Mr. James, which is unfortunate because, you know, a man cannot stand on his own understanding, and that's biblical. You see, so, but sure, I have no difficulty in discussing any issues with Mr. Linton on any matter of national or international interest. And I'm sure there are a number of things I can teach him, you know, and educate him on, because he is living in an abyss of ignorance on a number of issues. And the unfortunate thing is that he doesn't know that he doesn't know. So I would like to try to get him to first know that he doesn't know, and then to learn what I've taught him. But the issue of my political future, you know, at some point I will discuss with the nation on this. It is a wonderful experience to be leader of the country. It has not been easy. I have been tested more than Job on a number of occasions, and I have maintained the faith. Not only the faith in God, but in the faith in the people of Dominica. And even as we're fighting this pandemic, you'll hear even a number of supporters of the opposition party, they will say to people privately, boy, thank God it's Skerrit as the Prime Minister of Dominica, not Linton, because they know that he will not be able to lead the country in this very difficult time. And when you have a situation where we have gotten so many tens of thousands doses of vaccines, the first country in the Caribbean, and that we have shared this with so many countries, the question one would ask Mr. Linton, where would he get the vaccines from? As far as I know, the Polisario don't manufacture vaccines. So certainly not from them, because that's the only known friend that he has. And now that the United States has recognized the sovereignty of Morocco, the Kingdom of Morocco, on this part of the Sahara, they really no more Polisario. But thank you for your questions, and I hope I've responded with the respect in which the questions have been posed at me. And I look forward to meeting with yourself again. You can feel free to call me if you have any questions, as you do from time to time, on the country's development. We have to, I think the media has an important role to play, you know, and it has to do so in a mutually respectful and serious manner. And I think, by and large in Dominica, I think the journalists have been doing a pretty good job. I mean, we're not perfect, but certainly I appreciate what you're doing. And thank you for being there. I'm not sure whether you have any final words to the people.
Well, just two more questions I had for you.
Two more questions.
But time won't permit us, it doesn't seem so.
Well,
I will need an update on the Yes We Care and Yes We Care program.
Yes,
and
we
the
care.
Creole, we are hearing that there is a suggestion that Creole should be included in a wall, but we can probably deal with that.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. I'm sure DBS and Carry, but you guys run DBS and Carry, so we don't might take five more minutes and so on. With regards to the Yes We Care program, I have gotten Honorable Justin Childs Rivera to come in a pro bono manner to assist with the review of the Yes We Care program. So the cabinet has appointed her to review the Yes We Care program for us, because we have two tracks of the Yes We Care program: the original Yes We Care program, and then we have caregivers from the NEP. And so the intention there is to, first of all, look at how it's going, because it's been a while now since we have it, and to do this this review of the SUK program to see how we can enhance it, how we can improve it, how we can provide better care to our senior citizens, what additional care do they need and support do they need. And the intention there is to collapse the NEP with the original SUK program. What I would say to all of these caregivers is that, one, you have to respect the senior citizens. Two, you have to provide the care that you've been paid to the senior citizen. Senior citizens must be appreciated, they must be respected, and they must be given the kind of care that they need to get. And as small as your wage might be, as you say, you have to give these people care. And you can't be disrespectful to them. You can't be rude to them. And so any report I get from anybody in this country about they being rude to any senior citizen, you'll be fired. The senior citizens, and I don't want anybody to tell me what I didn't say that to the senior citizen. No, I know what I said. No, the senior citizens must be satisfied with the care that you give. And so we'll be reviewing this SUK because I want to make sure that the program maintains its original mandate of providing care and love to our senior citizens under any circumstance. So Nurse Charles will be coming to review. She started the work. I look forward to her report and to see what additional stuff we can do for the SUK program. The issue of Creole in schools is a good idea, but at the end of the day, if we're not going to speak Creole to our children at home, we're going to have a problem in doing it at schools. So people have to start speaking Creole at the home, and in the streets, and the buses, and the radio stations, et cetera, et cetera. Because a school, you only have 5 hours at the school, and if you have Creole language being taught at the school, maybe just for 20 minutes on any given day. But we spend 19 hours at home and in the community, because that's where you have to learn language really for a socialization process. And it has to start at the home. It has to start in the community. And so there's less and less people are speaking Creole in Dominica, and I think it's something that we have to guard against. And I'm happy that a number of schools are have already started engaging themselves in Creole language. And now that the Ministry of Education has endorsed formally of it being taught in the schools, and you have people like Wadix and so on, who are very enthusiastic about supporting this and so on. So it's something that we have to look at. And I think that the Parliament needs to move and amend the standing orders to allow Creole to be spoken in the Parliament without the need to having to translate whenever you speak Creole. So I think these things will help. I think it's important for us to get the schools to do it, but we have to support the schools. That is to say, the families and the communities that will support the schools.
So if you give me a nod of approval, Prime Minister, last
Sure.
2 quick questions.
Sure.
Of course, I know in your preamble, in your introduction, you mentioned Commonwealth Day being observed tomorrow and International Women's Day, but International Women's Day in particular, what is your direct message to women at this time? And I just want to throw in a quick question. Dominica's minimum wage has been discussed over several years. The government said last year it will be discussed in 2021. Is that a matter being considered?
Well, my message to women is that you have to keep fighting on. You have to keep moving on. I don't think we should complain about our circumstance. We must let our circumstance be our motivation. I believe women have a very important role to play in our society. I think women have come a very long way in Dominica. When you look at leadership positions in private sector, public sector, they're largely women. I mean, I'm looking at the permanent secretaries, and 95% of them, 98% of them are women. From the Secretary of the Cabinet to the Financial Secretary and a number of permanent secretaries and so forth in the banks and the other government institutions. So women in Parliament, we have ministers, we have seen a dramatic increase in the number of women in Parliament who've contested elections and who've won and who in Parliament making a contribution. So women have come a long way. I think it's a matter for us to keep working together as a society and to see what additional actions we need to take to enhance the contribution of women into society. Sometimes a lot of the challenges we speak about women internationally, we really don't have those challenges here in Dominica, And we have to really guard against domestic violence. It's important that women work towards being independent, and to create that independence for themselves. And it's also very important for men to take on their responsibilities. Too many men who are not caring for the children, financially and otherwise, and that places a tremendous strain on women. And so we have to salute them, and I personally salute them. I have the greatest of admiration for them. I mean, and it's important that the society recognize that the women have, though they have achieved, if we've had the first female prime minister and all others, but that does not mean that there are still no challenges. And even if we don't have some of the challenges in the world, we in Dominica must help the world in addressing those challenges because we're part of a global community. The issue of minimum wage, people came to cabinet, there was a committee as required by law that looked at the minimum wage in Dominica. There were recommendations for the increase in the minimum wage. The cabinet sent the paper back to assess what is actually being paid, because we speak about the minimum wage in Dominica, but the reality is nobody's being paid at the minimum wage in Dominica already. I mean, most people are being paid above the minimum wage. And my personal view is that if we're going to increase the minimum wage, should we peg it at a lower rate than what the market is paying now? If you understand what I'm saying. So if the market is paying $8 an hour, should we have the legislation say we pay at $7 an hour? To me, so that's a discussion which I think we need to have. But left to me, I believe that, and that's why as the cabinet, as the minister for national security, home affairs, to do some further review. I think he has now that information, and I'm hoping that we can have a quick discussion publicly about it, and before the cabinet takes a decision on the minimum wage. But people don't really get, for example, in the public service, in 2007, I took a decision that nobody who is working for 40 hours in the public service should get less than $1,000. And that has been in place for all these years. All right? So we need to look at what is actually being paid now, and vis-a-vis what is the recommendation to increase it to. Obviously, these things will have an impact on the employers because they'll be mandated by law to pay these things. So it's something that we have to look at, but this has been a debate going on for some time and so forth, and I think we will, before the end of the month, hopefully we will take a definitive decision on the issue of the minimum wage in Dominica. Okay. But again, thank you very much. This is our country, let us be positive, let us be constructive. As I've always reminded you, let us look at the glass half full rather than half empty. And ask ourselves, how can I contribute towards getting the glass to get to the brim and overflow? Let us go forth and serve our God and to serve our country. This country needs us to be constructive. It needs us to be positive. And we can have our own self-examination or self-criticism, but it will always be to the greater benefit of our country. As the Prime Minister of the country, I'll continue to do what I have to do and what I must do on behalf of the citizens of this country, and I give you that renewed commitment. So have a wonderful week. Tomorrow we celebrate Commonwealth Day. Tomorrow we celebrate International Women's Day. Let us greet each woman in Dominica, and also let us give God thanks to the Commonwealth for having been such a wonderful partner with Dominica for so many decades. Thank you. God bless. And of course, thank you, Ivana. Thank you, Steve.
Welcome.
And I look forward to us having such exchanges in the future. God bless. Thank you. Good night.
I did not imagine that the prayers of my country would have been answered so swiftly.
Vaccine. Under COVID pressure in we country, mentally, socially, economically. Look, we get a blessing rather quickly to bring us back to some kind of normalcy. Yes, you over 18, take the vaccine. To protect your family, take the vaccine. To safeguard the elderly, take the vaccine. To bring back with festivals, take Take the vaccine. Take the vaccine. Need it. This is a message from Tasha P. and the Health Promotion Unit of the Ministry of Health, Dominica.